All right, we got some of the later night events going. This obviously is it. My stream times are going to be irregular, but my content output will be consistent. That's kind of the plan right now. Is like I just want to try and like on the days that I plan to do it, you know, squeeze in an hour and a half. Oh, hang on, I got my thing going through the stream. Okay, I'm actually all right. This backup mic doesn't sound bad, to be honest. But I do want to get a good one again. I need to get like a more solid mic, and then after that point, I feel like it'll be much easier to kind of just progress from there. I need to change that background. I forgot it's still Viernez's like hieroglyphic set, but it's what it is. Obviously, I'm going to talk about like the Dragon King Festival is going to be a big general like bit of conversation. I just realized I posted the stream, but I didn't write anything in the actual post. Let me fix that. That's actually stupid. Let me fix that. Let me fix that mid-go. Hold on. Because that I have to delete that. That's just going to bother me from an aesthetic standpoint. I just got to get a picture after this. I can transfer that over. And then I gotta freaking delete the old tweet. And then I'll post it. Just be like, I was gonna say, let's go over the event. Alright, there we go. Now I can post it up properly. What's up to anybody who's here? Obviously, like, I don't plan on any of my irregular time streams to really get anybody to show up. My goal with it is just to get anybody who normally wouldn't be able to, check one of my live streams, just kind of pops in and has a chance to talk. Maybe there'll be somebody that I haven't seen in a while, even that'll come by and hang out. Even for a brief bit. I mean, primarily, let me actually put some music on in the back. 1 second. Primarily, the goal is just to kind of, I want to talk about whatever the topic is. I want to put out a bit of content. I wish I did it a little earlier. What I'll probably do is I'll probably do one on Monday for sure. I mean, I'm going to do one on Tuesday for sure. I'll probably do one Monday and Tuesday. And then, Monday will be, a regular time, and Tuesday will be a regular time. And maybe just the ones later in the week are going to have more of the irregular schedule, or, more of the regular schedule, but the early weekdays will be more towards the general time plan. I think that could probably work. I mean, obviously I wanted to just be primarily consistent, because I don't intend for people to make. Oh, hang on, it's super loud. 1 sec. I don't even think I have it going through Streamlabs. 1 second. I have it just going through my headphones. Desktop audio. Let me see if it can even catch this. I have it going. Let me see. Maybe it's just the app itself, or the app, the properties of it. Let's go into my headset. Oh, my pets is getting yelled at. I don't see it. I'll fix it. Let me say, if we're to be honest, Bloodmen would beat all the Dragon Eaters. I don't believe that. I mean, all of them could pretty much just overpower him. Not all of them. I'd say most of them. Because, I mean, someone like Scullion would just be able to turn him to ash immediately. He has the Bane Particles, but, I mean, Bane Particles are going to be similar to something like Anti-Magic from Black Clover, as just an easy example. You can't just say, a one Bane Particle beats all magic. It should be a 1-for-1, I would assume. So, anything that is just more magic than it can handle is just going to get overwhelmed. Let me see real fast, because I don't know why it's not going through the stream, because, I have the music on. Oh, do I have it muted? I do have it muted, I think. Let me see. There we go. Got something going in the background. Actually, something moving along. What's up, though, Michael? How have you been doing today? As I plan, I mean, primarily, we're going to talk about the Dragon King Festival. I still want to talk about some, stuff around, Gacha Yakuta stocks, Four Nights the Apocalypse, the most recent chapters have been actually really interesting. It's been primarily important lore build, but it's all like just kind of weirdly like revealing all the weird like mysteries around Percival and like giving us an idea about what's going on with him. Juvia killed Keys from. Oh, I mean, like she. So it wasn't that she like the same concept overwhelmed him. It's that he was already physical, and I imagine he can't just turn intangible with a living person inside of him, because he thought he was going to snuff her out. But I think what Juvia did logically, from just like a fighting standpoint, is she just kept making water from the inside, and I doubt he would be able to really keep up with that, because it's like your body, it doesn't take a lot of mass to overpower like your physical body from the inside, I would assume, when it comes to water, especially when we've seen how much like water she can generate. So it's like all she would have to really do is just apply more water faster than he could apply Bane particles, and he's made of it, but at the same time the water I think would like obviously overwhelm to an extent, because though the Bane particles destroy magic, it isn't like, oh, it just touches something magic and then it falls apart. You know, there's a gap of time. Like, there's obviously a potency involved. And we know that Keys actually wasn't very strong. He was just hard to fight in terms of, like, he had a weird power, and then he had a high level of cursed energy quantity. Like, his cursed power quantity was pretty good. That was mostly his thing. He was like Kisame, except like if Kisame was Zetsu, because Keys really wasn't a fighter. Even in terms of like just him in general, his direct combat capability with his like skeletons was not very good. He's more of like a support guy. Because I just don't really see what he would do in a normal fight, because none of his skeletons were strong. None of his summons were strong. If you count Silver, I guess. But I mean, that's... Ow, hit my foot. That's like a whole extra bit. Like, Silver is his own character. And obviously, Keys manipulated him through necromancy. But there was never a time where he used him in a fight or, like, showed if he could summon him. It seems more like after Silver got up and he gained his consciousness, he was pretty much just his own man with no manipulation involved. At least from like what I can tell. Like, his necromancy doesn't seem the same as, say, Nineheart's Historia's, because with necromancy, you control them being alive, sort of. Obviously, they're like an undead, but they would have their same personalities and same mentalities. Whereas with the Historia, they're like them if they were on this other side. So like for the most part they are the same character, but the way they think is like shifted. It's in towards Nineheart, like the summoner's favor. I would actually really like to see that magic again, but we don't really need to, considering we have Viernes, who Viernes has a better version. Because we know Nineheart's sets them at like a specific level. It seemed like characters that were higher level than him got weaker, and then characters weaker than him got higher level. So, I don't imagine we would see really anybody in terms of Historia, like, stronger than Nineheart. We could just get, like, a lower level one that gives us some, like, world building. But I don't think we really need to, considering, like, Viernes, as long as he knows anything about a character, he could just make a duplicate of them that, like, has physical form and mass and can do the same things. What I want to know is, like, could he make a person and then warp their whole being? Like, he made, like, imagine if he made Natsu but only the Etheria side. He just made an E and D version. I think that would be really interesting, because if he could do that, what's stopping him from pretty much making any character, but just making them in like a shift more of his favor, or like perfecting something that was defective about him, you know, something that was like a detriment, like Hades, without like trying to be overly cinematic and trying to have a performance, like just straight to the point, not fucking around. He would have killed, you know, obviously the main cast at the time relatively easy if he just put his direct effort into it and didn't mess around too much. But I mean, to be fair, he kind of saw them as kids, so he didn't really take them seriously, and I think that's fair from his standpoint. He's like 120 something years old, so like some like people in their like middle to late teens and then early 20s. Well, Wendy's like the only one in her early teens, but you know, to early 20s, he's not going to take them too seriously. Ever since God's Trinity came back, he's learned respect for the strong. I mean, the thing is, like, I think he knew, like, he respected people stronger than him. Like, obviously, he listened to Zareth and August. But the thing is, like, I think that he just was so unaware of the gap between him and Acnologia. Oh, knocked my mic over. Like, he just didn't know about the gap, really, that was there. Because it seemed like anybody that had any aggression towards Acnologia underestimated him. Like, everybody seemed just to underestimate the hell out of him in terms of, like, prepping for him. Because even Igneal said that Acnologia was stronger than he thought. So Acnologia, but that might just be that he was, at the time, weaker, or he, you know, he obviously could have got stronger over the course of the time. I think that would make sense. It's not like he started out at his level that we first saw him at. But for the most part, I would imagine that really what we saw, like, Igneal thought he was weaker than when he encountered it, and Acnologia was him going all out during their fight. So, any character really besides Irene? I think Irene was probably the only one in terms of that, like, actually knew about Acnologia and came into contact with him in any form of combat to any degree. She's, like, the only one that, like, took him very seriously from the start and was, like, aware of what he could do and had the mindset of, all right, this is what I need to kind of, like, keep an eye out on, and obviously this is who this is, so I can't let this, like, I can't mess around too much kind of mentality. And I think that was one of the things that stood her different than a lot of characters. Can't really say that with the dragon gods, because they're dragons of similar stature, so they would just have, like, a different standing than somebody like Irene. Rusty Rose versus Nineheart, where Rose can create his allies as well. He could, but I mean, like, if he took damage, they just kind of crossed out, and this wasn't like him getting knocked out. If he doesn't concentrate, his creations fade out of existence. They're not the same as, like, Nineheart, to where Nineheart just kind of creates them and just kind of stands back. Even Hurt, they didn't just kind of, like, immediately vanish. Like, you have to, like, fully knock this man out to kind of prevent any of this stuff. Rusty Rose just has to kind of get rattled a little bit. Like, when Elfman kicked him in the back of the head, his tower completely, like, just bubbled out. Just faded. But, as it were, I think that Rusty Rose is cool, but it seemed like, just because I feel like it's pretty easy to take the anime scenes from Tartaros as canon. And with Rusty Rose, it didn't seem like he got stronger at all, like, over the 7 years. It looked like he just kind of moped. Looked like he was just in a bad time, because, like, he was just dirty. He relatively had the same outfit, but he just never cleaned up. And then you'd think a power like his over 7 years would be phenomenal, but, like, he never did anything. Because I feel like if Rusty Rose took 7 straight years really to get stronger, he would have been able to easily beat Kyoka. Because, like, Kyoka's a tough fight, but Rusty Rose is one of the top magics in the series. It's just that Rusty Rose himself didn't seem to be really driven. He seemed like, really, when you compare it, him and Gremmy are actually really similar, because they have they have talent in terms of just, like, how they operate their power. I would say Rusty Rose more so, he's more creative, but Gremmy's is just a higher level of imagination creation. But the two of them, like, their fighting style is so sporadic because they don't really have technique. And so because of that, I feel like it makes sense that Rusty Rose, without any form of group support in terms of, like, the environment with somebody way higher level to kind of push him along, him just doing nothing makes a lot of sense when you think about it. He's just this washed up prodigy. It's like, oh wow, like, you have an amazing magic, and you have the mentality and creativity for it, but he just lacks the drive to kind of climb the power level ladder. And because of that, he just fizzled out and became pretty much a hobo. Really, really powerful magic hobo, pretty much. Flow vs. God's Ring is going to be so good. I can't wait. That's easily, as of right now, the fight I want to see most. Easily the fight I want to see most. Like, it's not even remotely close. Like, Natsu and, like, Duke and Athena, I think that fight could be really entertaining to see in terms of just, like, watching Duke operate. But none of the other fights are as interesting as Jalal and God Serena, because Urza's, I'm not too sure about Urza's right now, because fighting both of the Signario sisters at the same time is going to be weird for her, especially with like both of them. If both of them get involved and they're both powers that Urza is going to have a lot of a weird time with alchemy at that scale. Lucy, I think Lucy is going to beat Genai relatively easy. Like, I think she's going to have a medium level of difficulty, if maybe not lower. I'm hoping Gray stomps Kotetsu. I think Gray, this is what I really want, is for Gray to just have a fight where it's literally just like he's like, oh, I've been trying to figure out how to use this new power that I was working on. And you're pretty much like a really good test subject. I think that would be cool. Especially like with this whole lava area, seeing Gray freeze like lava and like the terrain and like a superheated area, but you have like one just cold spot and it's just where Gray goes. That'd be really cool. But like Urza, like I am anticipating that the Urza fight will be weird. Like I don't think that the Signario sisters are gonna lose. My guess is Urza is gonna have a fight where they don't take her seriously enough and they're messing around, and Urza gets close and their fight gets interrupted, or Urza loses. I think Urza get like the fight getting interrupted, but it's in a way that like the difference between her and Masaki is the Signario sisters learn from the mistakes, because obviously there's, I think with two of them too, that they have a better opportunity to learn and develop in terms of analyzing their opponents. But it's going to really depend. Like, it's going to depend a lot on, obviously, how their fight goes. But the fight, by far, I want to see is Jalal versus God Serena, because that one, I think, is going to be the coolest. Like, you have 8 Lacrima Dragon Slayer, and 2nd gen, but still, and Jalal, like, the guy. Like, he's the Itachi of the series. I'd say better written, but there's probably a Naruto fan out there that get mad at me for it. It is what it is. But Jalal, I think Jalal's fight is going to be so cool. And on top of that, once God Serena loses, I think we're going to see Duke take action and take the 8 Lacrima out of his body and make another Athena. Gray and Lucy hype, but I'd rather see Rogue fight. See, like this, the Rogue fight would be so boring, because I don't think it's a fight that would be fun to watch. Like, he just turns stuff into, like, you just have Shadows versus a guy who turns stuff into iron if he lands a punch. But, I mean, unless, like, he has a crazy level of alchemy, you can't really transmute a Shadow, because Shadows don't have any mass. So I don't think you'd be able to transmute it into something else. Because you would need to affect something that's a concept, something like a Shadow. So I don't think that Genai or Kotetsu would have the capabilities of that. Like, I think that they'd be just too low level. I think Natsu versus Duke, Athena 2, and Jalal versus Guts are actually what I look forward to. The Natsu fight would be cool, but like easily number one for me is Jalal versus God Serena. I think that fight's gonna be super hype. I find it crazy how Silver was such a better ice wizard than Gray. Not really. Gray's way more creative, and he uses his ice in a lot of different ways. The thing right now I think that Gray needs is Gray just needs some form of upgrade. I've talked about how I think that Gray should be focusing on just making his ice colder, similar to how Natsu's been working on making his fire just generally hotter. And you could get something really sick out of that. I would love to see, like, it's just like frozen around wherever Gray walks within a certain vicinity. And I haven't mentioned it yet. I know there's some people who probably remember, but I mean, I'll bring it up again. We're in a donation goal. Essentially right now, at 100, we're $74 in, I believe. It might be 72. I'd have to double check. It might be 72, but I think it's 74 out of 100 to get a new mic. But if within the month span until like the 11th, if we meet the $500 goal, I will get set up my camera and I will do content with my face at reveal and further, and like I want to start doing maybe some reaction content if we meet that mark, especially like leading up to the 100 Years Quest anime. I think it'd be really fun to watch a lot of the scenes, especially with any anime original content they add. Because I'd be willing to bet they're going to add some filler, some like couple of, little OVA type things where it's like, oh yeah, there's they're in Ermina an extra episode, and they're kind of just like having fun and hanging out and talking to some of the characters. Maybe you get a little bit more of Mercephobia. I think that would actually be really cool if we just got like an extra episode involving him, just like some fun bit where he's involved. But any amount that you guys donate during this goes towards those funds. Obviously, as said before and many times before, it is all off of donation. You know, it is not required. It is appreciated. But anyway, Gray should do like Invul. I think that's where we could see a lot of Gray going, though. Because a lot of 100 Years Quest, in terms of its bare bones and skeleton, like the overall arc plan, Mishima was writing it during 100 Years Quest's like whole structure. Like, so while we saw Invul and everything around that confrontation of Gray versus Invul, Mishima was thinking about, okay, what am I going to be doing with Gray in 100 Years Quest? What in 100 Years Quest is Gray going to be up to? So, like, even though there's a time gap between the Invul fight when it happened and now, Mishima as a writer was probably thinking of a lot of the general ground that would be covered while he was writing that. Not 100%, but I imagine there's a degree of, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, like, in involvement. Because I think that just makes sense in terms of, like, it would be weird if he wrote Alvarez, like, knowing he was doing 100 Years Quest with no set plans of 100 Years Quest, especially when you look at a lot of what he's already done. I don't think it would be the case that he wouldn't have that planned out. You know, like I said, not the whole thing, but it's like with an idea of what you're doing. So I think Gajil got hoed, should have fought Manhole, no Hestar. Oh, Mad Mole? I would have liked him to have the Mad Mole fight. It's hard to be mad at Gajil, though, because Gajil didn't want to be involved, and he's like trying specifically to get set up to be a dad. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, damn, he doesn't get to do fighting stuff, but that's really good for his character. It's frustrating because I want to see him do stuff from, you know, from a combat standpoint and see like him stay relevant to the other characters. Like, so whenever he gets at points to fight again where they're going to need him or where he needs to get involved, he's not going to be too weak, or they're just going to have him somehow jump levels. Because Gajil really needs something new. That's one of the things that's really upsetting, is he needs something that adds on to like what he can already do. And that's kind of the same thing with Gray. I don't think Gray needs it as much. I still think Gray needs to get some form of form upgrade, form continuation. Maybe like, you know, I've mentioned it before, like a horn, the icicles on it, something pretty sick. But I think Gajil, in terms of like adding a new thing to just his general moveset, is needed way more. Because when you think about it, he hasn't had anything in terms of like from a moveset standpoint advancement since he got Iron Shadow Dragon mode. Because in Tartaros, like the whole Steel Dragon, that didn't really retain. He didn't get like a changeable form. In Alvarez, he got a power-up that was only temporary. Same thing. The giant magic thing, I'm actually really hoping that he learns giant magic from Makarov. I think it would make a lot of sense for him from his character, but also from the idea, like, I imagine with that magic making your like one item, especially yourself, bigger would be pretty basic. Like, he doesn't have to make himself smaller, but if he could just like, oh yeah, I can make myself grow to a certain size and sizes in between, and that's it, and he just can kind of grow larger. I think that would make sense, and it would add something to him without really adding too much. Because like, you could do some like just cool giant feats and kind of just have it like, oh yeah, it's just like, because metal, he has like more mass and just like more weight to each attack. Okay, that makes sense. But we obviously have to get to a point where that's possible for him. Let's try to think. Gajil versus the Wood Dragon God was he fought to protect his family. Gajil just fought like he just fought a couple golems in Drasil. Like, he didn't really fight anybody specific or anybody, like, he didn't even really fight one of the God Seeds. He was just fighting one of the golems. He was hanging out with Mira Jane and like knowing that this was not his arc. I mean, really, when you think about it, he did get a decent upgrade in terms of like where he stands, because we saw that like Natsu Lightning Flame Dragon mode is just a sliver above Iron Shadow Dragon mode Gajil. So Natsu in base and Gajil in base should be relatively equal. Obviously, Natsu has an edge, but he should be within range of him in general. So any characters that Natsu and base can take, Gajeel should be able to do the same. Same thing with Iron Shadow Dragon mode. It's after that point where it starts to get a little muddy. And Gajeel doesn't have an additional thing, and as far as we know, he can't activate Dragon Force at will, which is something that he really needs. Like, he really needs to have that added to his character. And it's like, to be honest, we don't even need to have some, like, big, crazy, like, I feel like it would be cool to have, like, a more important reveal, but we don't need it. Like, we could easily have something where, for the most part, it's not as crazy reveal. It's like, oh yeah, he can do it now, but the reveal is more of like, oh, he can do lots of crazy new things with Dragon Force. Like, say, maybe he can increase his, like, he can, like, change it to different metals. Or he mentions, like, oh, well, you know, Dragon Iron can increase its density in something. It's more metal, but it's the same size, where it's like you are just compacting more and more metal into one spot. I think that'd be pretty cool. So it's, oh, black steel, because every time it compacts, like, the metal gets darker, and you do some kind of combo like that. I think that'd be pretty cool, and then he becomes actually black steel Gajeel. Like, I think that would be a really cool upgrade for him. It just kind of depends, because there's, like, a couple characters, if you look at the like a grid of events, you can, it's hard to see what Mishima's overall plan with them is. Like, the four in Fairy Tail, like, a good example: Gajeel, Gray, Elfman. I think like right there. Did I say 4? I feel like, and Kana maybe, because Gray is in the main cast, so you don't have to worry about him as much. And then it's Gajeel. Gajeel's like one step behind him, and then you have, like, Kana, and you have Elfman, who Mishima likes and has given really good scenes to, but hasn't really done anything in a long time. Like, Kana, realistically, I don't think as a character she's really done anything since the Grand Magic games, when she used Fairy Glitter on the Magic Power Finder. I know she does a little bit in Tartaros and a little bit in Alvarez, but those are almost like in Tartaros, she really only does, like, the card save, and that's it. In Tartaros, or in Alvarez, all she really does is just kind of like that, you know, do some back burner stuff against August while Gildarts does the main fight. Like, they haven't had a lot. Like, Elfman, I want to say Elfman really hasn't had anything since his Grand Magic game fight either, because he really doesn't do anything in Tartaros that I'd say is, like, really strongly mentionable of his character. And in Alvarez, he does relatively nothing. Like, I wish the anime gave us a short fight for him and Lizana versus Agil. Like, that could have at least done something for him, but it was off-screen in both the manga and the anime, so it's like you can't even really count that as anything for Elfman. Gray just is, like, in a spot where you know he's going to. It just feels like we're never gonna get there. Gajeel is similar, but, like, it's obviously like Gajeel just needs to be in an arc, whereas Gray is going to be in all the arcs regardless. So it's like, well, when is it going to be Gray's turn again? If Natsu uses 7 Fire Dragons form again, no, I don't want to see that again. I really don't. Like, it's a temporary thing. I don't want Natsu to retain things like that, because I think it makes sense for retaining a second attribute if it comes from a Lacrima, just because we've seen it consistently work that way and become a mode. And then on top of that, we've seen Natsu can retain Dragon Flames, but he does not retain flames outside of that. And I don't think we need to have Natsu just have every flame he's ever eaten. I wouldn't really like that very much. Like, unless it's mentioned specifically that, oh, well, now he can, maybe it's an Aetherius power. But I mean, like, I don't really see any other that's really that important, because most of the other ones are, like, utility ones, like Cold Fire, Smelly Fire, like Sticky Fire. What's that really going to matter if you have a combination of Dragon Flames that burn magic in relatively anything they touch? What's your thoughts on the latest arc of Black Clover news and My Hero? For My Hero's manga, I like the whole All Might mech suit. I think, like, as long as All Might dies, if All Might somehow lives through this, I'm going to be really annoyed. Just because, like, All Might's a character that should have died a while ago. And he's not like a character like, oh, like Makarov had some deaths, near-death scenes. I feel like it's, well, he had a death, but I mean, like, it's not the same as what we're talking about. He he had near death scenes, but his character didn't have to die logically for the story to like move forward. I think in a lot of ways, where I feel like because Makarov retiring and kind of just being like this dude who just is like the old man guildmaster, like finally with All Might I think has to die in terms for the story to really move, and he's been sick and dying, and not like, well, Makarov is an old man with a heart condition. Freaking All Might's like missing organs and regularly spits up blood, so it's like he's dying. He's like in his like what, like 30s, so he's like bad in his 30s. So him making it out, I think, out of this fight alive will be a bad move. Because I thought he should have died a long time ago, but I feel like now with the like knowing what Horikoshi had planned, this makes more sense for his end. But we're gonna have to wait and see. I feel like it would make sense to kill him here, but if he doesn't, I don't really know. With Black Clover switching, the only thing about it that I really don't like, because I'm ultimately fine with, obviously Tabata sorry, the heat's been getting me today. With Tabata ultimately making sure his health and this health of his wife are priority. I personally would have just wanted a hiatus. I think it would have been fine if he just, because like think about it like this. We're not going to get the chapter for 4 months. So that's the equivalent of what? Generally 15, 16 chapters. That's going to be what? That's 2 volumes. Like 2 volumes worth of content. So I want to say what, like 18 chapters? Wait, no, I already said that. Like 18 chapters, like average, you're going to get somewhere around what? Maybe like let's just say 300 pages. Let's say 300 pages. So he does what? 100 pages per month, 3 pages a day, where he's not doing it on a weekly schedule. He just completes pages, like a few per day, and he'd be good to like literally be 10 something, 10, 15 chapters ahead by just kind of doing it quietly without, release stress. Because even it's like, oh, well, you only did 10 chapters instead of 15, but it's like, well, now he's 10 chapters ahead. And so like taking weeks off aren't a problem because he can keep with the schedule, but get an actual bit of rest. Because that's what like Mishima stayed, I think, like somewhere between like 3 to 5 chapters ahead on average. So he was able to like pretty much, oh shit, I keep knocking this mic over. He was able to have more time to do stuff and rest while keeping the manga going, and like with any additional chapter weeks and like additional content that he did. I think that's what Tabata should be doing personally. The thing though that I don't like is that there's a lot of side content I think that there's very little chance we're going to get now. Like Mars coming back, Leopold ever getting his time. I don't think that's ever going to happen now. Really, I think there's going to be a lot of general character content we're not going to see a lot of. I think outside of flashbacks, I think we're going to get for some of the characters flashbacks that have story bits to tell and connect and give us answers to, like obviously Morgan, Noct, and Yami. But I don't see a lot of like fun side content, like maybe like for example the chapter when it was in the Elf arc. We had just pretty much what the Black Bulls and then Rades' group. There's another person. We're never going to get Rades really being relevant. What was the point of him going to the Spade and like being a character? I don't know. The only time I get like annoyed with authors when it comes to like characters is when they have characters around with seemingly no plan and they don't just kill them off. Because like if you have zero reason to keep a character around other than just like I just didn't have this character planned out, just kill him. Because then it's like you have a character, and obviously Rades, like you could have had something for it, like Rades goes use this thing, but one of the devils takes his soul or something. I don't know. Like there could have been content there, but they just decided not to. Another time Loki fought Gajil. Gajil was impressed with his strength, even Loki was weakened. Well, yeah. So going off of his own strength, and then like he's stayed there a while. He had like a decent level that he would just have by default of being a high level combat celestial spirit. That was just the anime doing a little bit of foreshadowing. But I mean, like Gajil is clearly not too pressed. If the Spriggans and Gold Owl battled each other, who would win? Honestly, it's like you have to count Viernes, and it's like I don't see anybody really on the Spriggan side doing anything to Viernes. Like with the Signario sisters and Duke, like we don't really know enough about them. Like August is a motherfucker, Irene is a motherfucker. Like those two are the real hardballs when it comes to the Spriggan side. But Viernes is his own beast in comparison. Like, because they have zero ways to really do anything. Irene has her conceptual enchant, separation enchant, which could do something in theory, but she doesn't have a Philosopher's Stone. And honestly, like, Viernes could just kill them all in one swing. I'll be right back 1 second. I'll get some water. If you guys got any questions, spam it now. Get them in the chat so I can read them so that I have, like, a distance of content I haven't seen. 1 sec. I guess not content, commentary. Alright, I'm back. As you might be able to tell from the sound of the fan in the background, this room is hot. So, I need to get water whenever possible. It's been blazing in here trying to keep this bitch going. It's like, this is my room. This is a really nice room for my computer and everything to be set up in terms of space, but it gets hot in here. And I'm not a fan of when it's freaking sweaty just to sit down. Maybe I'll make that a stretch goal. Guys, get me a silent fan that's good. It'll just be on there. In that goal, I will have Tartaros show up for a whole stream. He'll just be forced to hang out. He'll just chill and bite my hands. What's up, Shamar? Yeah, so my plan is, I was talking about earlier, I got 2 streams I'm going to do at regular time. That'll be Monday, Tuesday. And then Thursday, Saturday, I will do one early in the morning and one later in the evening like this. That way, other people who aren't in the normal time span to catch the screen have a chance to be able to get it. So I feel like, if I do 4 streams and, cover all together, pretty much, most of the day. The way I do it, it's like between the first one and the second one, there's only going to be like 5 hours, and the second or the third, there's only going to be about 5 hours. Lucius versus Madara. I would go Lucius, to be honest. Like, his general moveset is better. Madara has hand-to-hand combat and physical strength over him, but I don't think that's really going to matter if, you get hit by a time ball, and you have nothing to really, counter it. Because, Madara could get killed from the first thing. Or, locked in a repeating second. And then what's he supposed to do? Use Sharingan? What's that going to do for him? Nothing. Then Lucius has, self-healing. He's got soul magic. Soul magic isn't as cool as I was hoping it would be. But I feel like a lot of that is just because Tabata's, going to this different style of time. They should have done something funny. Like, the end of this most recent chapter, Lucius does a time spell, and it, everybody gets caught in it. But it's like, oh, well, it's not a time damaging spell. It's a time, I guess, a time perception spell. So it's like, oh, well, this one, I can't damage you guys in it, but it gives me some prep time. Which actually I think would be really cool for a character like that. If it's like, oh, I can cast this and have, a free, what feels like for you guys is 4 months. But for me, it's a day. And he can't hurt anybody, but it gives him time. He literally disappears and, has, a lab where he does a couple quick experiments. Maybe makes, advanced copy where it's like, oh, well, if I combine all the Lucius clones, they're not as powerful as the real me, but there's something more chaotic, and you have like this big weird chimera amalgamation of versions of himself in this big like monstrous behemoth. I think that would be really cool. And then bam, you have the whole like, we'll see you in 4 months, and it's like, instead of it being like, yeah, we're getting moved, it's, oh yeah, we got caught in Lucius' spell, so it's gonna be a minute. I think that'd be really fun. I wish Tabata did a couple like silly moves like that, just for the fact of throwing things up for a loop. I think that would have been really cool. Like, I don't think anybody would have seen a scene like that and been like, eh. Oh, I gotta actually talk about the Dragon King Festival. Jeez. So, let me get it up on stream really fast. Let me pull this up, because I need a good visual of it to give a proper explanation of what I am going for in this. Because I know the consensus is the Dragon King Festival is going to involve Acnologia. I don't think so. I think Acnologia obviously is the Dragon King. You know, he's a logical person to connect it to. But I do not think that that we've seen it yet. Because the Grand Magic Games were at one point called the Dragon King Festival. The the Grand Magic Games was based around the idea of, you know, obviously this big battle of what was going on, you know, whatever, a feast between dragon, men, and magic, as we've been told for it. But when it comes to what we actually got, I know it seemed like it was Acnologia. I do not think it was, as I've said. I think it was meant to put off the idea, but I don't think that we've seen what exactly Mishima was initially teasing. Because let me pull up the stream. Hold on. Let me change the picture. Not that one. 1 second. There we go. What's up, Happy the Assassin? How you doing? Suzaku versus God Serena. God Serena would body Suzaku, to be honest. Sorry. Reverse. Let me actually fix that. Suzaku should body God Serena. Like, I think if Natsu and God Serena actually fought now, God Serena would get his ass kicked. Because the thing is he's just difficult to fight. He doesn't seem really that crazy. I think Natsu could literally just burn through everything he sends this way, ultimately. Because I don't see anything God Serena has that he wouldn't be able to just overwhelm with a high enough quantity of heat. Whereas, like, Godjil doesn't have anything like that. He doesn't have just, like, a passive damage thing, like, you know, heat radiation. So, let me pull up this picture. I don't think you need to see his knees. So, what do we see here? So, in concept, the entire thing around it is obviously the Dragon King Festival. So the Dragon King has to be involved. How this doesn't require to be Acnologia is that we know Acnologia relinquished the title of Dragon King to Natsu once Natsu ended up putting in that final attack. So Natsu at this point, even though he didn't take the title, still technically has the title of Dragon King. And what do we know about Acnologia? Acnologia is a magic dragon. Even in the anime, when we didn't have this scene, we didn't have any knowledge that he was a magic dragon. When we saw Acnologia's roar in the manga, there's nothing really to go off of. It just looks like an energy beam. And, oh, hold on a second. Okay. What was I saying? Oh yeah, his roar and his attribute are just magic, but this one is spitting out fire. Now, what do we know though when it comes to Natsu as E and D? Is that he has a mixture of flames. So he's got all these different colors. And then, like, I don't think it's like a rainbow. I think it's like darker shades. Obviously, some are probably like, you know, heat arcs and stuff where you're gonna have these lighter bits. But I think ultimately it being a combination of everything ties together of what we've seen for E&D. Now, more like how so can this happen, is we know Natsu is in like a almost follow path for Acnologia in terms of becoming this monster. There's also the fact that once Acnologia got to a point, he split between two halves, his spirit and his body. Is what if we get that where Natsu eventually splits between his Etheria side and his normal self, and E&D becomes his own character? I think it would make a lot of sense for that to be the final villain. Like, other than Ankh Saram, but I think in concept, like a full dragon E&D should be stronger than Ankh Saram. Obviously, that's in theory. There's nothing we can say concrete because we have absolutely no idea about God Serena, or not God Serena, about Ankh Saram. Like, Ankh Saram information is literally folk tales of very, very little information. So we have, to be honest, nothing to go off of for Ankh Saram. I'm hoping one day we see him. Like, I know that there's like stuff that can be left a mystery, but I feel like Ankh Saram is a character we eventually have to address, because until he's dealt with, he can continuously still curse people and then give people this horrible curse that makes them death radiating immortals. Like, I don't think there's going to be really any that are going to get to the level of Zareth again. Because even a character, say like Duke, where Duke might have a similar-ish thing to Zareth. Like, Zareth was a prodigy of magic. Well, it's like, okay, well, Duke can be a prodigy of alchemy. But it's very clear that Duke's control of alchemy is nowhere close to Zareth's control of magic. Like, Zareth created an entire race of beings. We have Duke making people, but it seems like his is way more restricted, and Zareth can just make it out of raw magic. Like, he can just make living flesh people out of magic. And his are way more real than any of Duke's, because it's like there's... Like, when you say, like, Athena needed emotion, all of the Aetherius have their own emotions. All of them, like, behave like flesh and blood people, just in their own kind of style. But none of them are, like, mindless automatons in terms of, like, how we really saw them. I mean, closest you can really say is Deliora, but we just never really, I feel like, we're around Deliora enough to get him to talk. I actually had a bit of wonder if realistically we had a showing of some of the influence, because I feel like Deliora being conceptually related to the whole Beast King that Elfman took over would make a lot of sense. Being stronger than Ankh Saram sounds like a taboo. It depends on like what character it is, because I feel like there's some that you could be like logical. Oh yeah, like Space Between Time Acnologia, but at full power, no kind of separation or restrictions. You know, obviously he had power, but he didn't have any intelligence. Like, you combine the two and make them into a single being, I think it would be something you could argue as the strongest. Obviously, Ankh Saram should be able to easily be argued as the strongest. Fairy Heart Zareth. I mean, overall, because obviously he ran into just a bad matchup. I'm hoping, like, by the end of it, it's like, it's wild is when you really think of, like, the strongest people, the 6 dragon gods, including Dogromag, really just instantly take up most of the top 10 spots. I just think that's always kind of funny. We got introduced with these dudes. It's not like, oh yeah, 2 of them in there. Like, all of the dragon gods are in the top 10. And then it's like Acnologia. You can't really count Ankh Saram, though, because we have nothing to know about him. But I mean, like, including Acnologia, that's 7. 7 out of the 10. And then you have, what, like, Zareth? Maybe you've got August. Animus. Probably more so. I actually wonder, like, I feel like Animus, though, wasn't as powerful as Irene, to be honest. I feel like Irene would beat him. Not in terms of, like, doing hacks things. I feel like just in terms of being a dragon. Because, like, she seemed... Like, I feel like her being a king, royal level dragon makes sense. Like, I don't think she's on level with Igneel, especially Prime Igneel. But I feel like she's probably strong. Like, maybe like Alexion she was stronger than or something. Because Alexion didn't really have any information on. I really hope in the anime we see a little bit about Georg's attribute. Because it's crazy that we didn't see that fight. But we know that Georg is strong enough to where he ran over Alexion. And we don't know 100% where Alexion sits. But I feel like it's safe to assume that Alexion is stronger than any average dragon. Like, I don't think there's a dragon out there that has, no title of anything special, but is somehow above Alexion. Dragon Jerry, he has, he's a rock dragon. He has 0 extra powers or anything. He's literally just there. Let me see. I was just like scrolling back to try and get the Alexion bit so I can see a little bit of him in that flashback. Because we see freaking like Dogremag, and we see Kieran, or not Dogremag, Georg and Kieran and Alexion, but like, why don't we get to see Alexion when he was alive, man? Why don't we get to see a little bit of his character just being there? I would love to just see his, those badass horns, like this character who's just ready to freaking throw some lightning bolts. We really only saw the end of the fight, which is rough, but we also only saw it when Georg had been done fighting. Because like, I would have loved to see Georg fight. That would have been really cool. Like, Georg's fighting style is really neat, so if we got to see that, I think that would have been hype. It's like, at least in theory, because he looks so cool in his design. I'm really hoping we get a Duke, or I keep getting names mixed up, a Georg conceptual embodiment. Because I think that would be really cool just to have his character around again and at least see what he can do. Like, what exactly can he do in terms of, relatively anything. Because, like, all we got is a title. We just got 4 Beast Dragon Slaying magic, and that's it. We didn't get any intel, any direct information, or anything that actually tells us of what's going on. Just kind of that it's going on, and that's it. I don't know. I'm scrolling to look for the Alexion scene. I think it's the next chapter. I think 110. Let me see. Where's that flashback? Gray. Blaxus gets put in there. Yeah, you really only see part of his head and like a little bit of his back, and he looks cool, but like we didn't even get to see him up. And then like Georg looks really awesome. When he didn't have his beard, he did not look really awesome. But like, he's got all these badass scars. He's this overly sized, big buff, badass looking dude, and his magic is apparently pretty fancy. But I don't know. Nothing else after that. Nothing else after that point. Like, he could have been a really neat guy. I would have loved to see what like exactly he can do. I'm hoping maybe the anime, or we get something with Georg. One second. Like, he just got murdered. That dude got squished into a puddle, and we never saw anything happen to him otherwise. He is dead as fuck, and we could see him again, but I mean, like, not actually him, just like a copy. To see what he actually was capable of, I think that would be fantastic. Because, like, there's nothing really preventing him from doing that. I feel like it'd be logical that he would know about Georg, and on top of that, I feel like it would be really cool to see him actually participate in events. Like, I want to see Georg's character. I thought he was really cool from design standpoint. I thought he was cool from a lore standpoint. That panel, like the panel before we saw all the members of Diablos, before we saw the Dark Dragon Slayer Knights, that's one of my favorite panels in 100 Years Quest. It looks so cool. Like, let me see. What was that, chapter 92 or 93? It's just like the silhouettes of all of them. And we found out a little bit about Diablos and how Georg formed the guild to do the quest. Like, he's been at it for a while. Where's, like, the panel of it? I really like that panel. I remember I made that a thumbnail for that day just because it's cool. There it is. This is like others began to gather around him in the Mage Guild. Diablos was born. It just looks such a good panel. He looks like a bad guy, but he ultimately wasn't a bad guy. And his guild is cool too. He's got like a nice elite, and it's like the stuff around him. Like he was hunting dragons. He was such a neat character. But like this was after he died, so I'm really hoping that we get a flashback bit of content. Or we get a conceptual embodiment. Like, a concept embodiment of him fighting on Viarnes' side would be really... Oh, hiccup right there. Would be really cool in terms of just how we could see his character finally exist within the series. Actually getting to do something other than just kind of sitting on a couch and immediately getting killed. I mean, if God Serena got, like, a free redo to be relevant as a character, I feel like it's fair if Georg does, because really when you get down to it, Georg's like the Chad version of God Serena. Like, he's way cooler in terms of his design, in terms of how he has multiple powers, in terms of just like this older Dragon Slayer. He's way cooler and really in everything. Like, God Serena he's funny, but I don't know. He's not as much fun as I'd rather see. Like, I'd rather see Georg do content, just because Georg, I think, is cooler. Let me see. I ranted there for a minute. So let me see. Being strong, I already read this. I know Mishima won't expand it, but I wish we would know more about the gods aside from Oxaram. I don't think he needs to show all the gods. I think we could easily see a couple more, maybe like 2 or 3 more. But if we're going to do it, I would like to see it in a way that we don't just have a side story just for it. Maybe we get that in a continuation. Like, we see some more of the gods, like, that are relevant to the story somehow. Or we see Viarnes maybe make a couple copies. Maybe make some conceptual enchants. Because I think it'd be cool, like, oh, well, this is, I went and explored gods that were sealed or, existed somewhere in some shape or form. And I saw... she learned of Demaria and God Soul, so it's like, okay, he copied that while using that as a base. Where it's like, oh, well, I used it, I had to combine a human and give it God Soul. Like, it's like, imagine, like, there's a few Demarias, but they're different gods instead of Kronos. I mean, Alexion is a Dragon King. Yeah, I mean, we didn't get to see anything of him, though. You should do a dragon tier list one day. Have some fantasy battle scenarios between them. Are we talking about just fairy tale dragons? Imagine there used to be a council of dragon kings. I mean, there could have easily been something where it's like a meeting between them. Because I think it would make sense if all of like these alpha dragons had some form of knowledge of each other. But it's like we have the dragon gods and they're all equal, but all of them don't talk to each other. For the most part. Is the Phoenix one of the 4 beasts? Yeah, but it would have to be like a Phoenix dragon. But we don't have we have 0 information on Georg's stuff. The Phoenix dragon is something that people have had in theory for a while to see if he could come back. Logically, without him just being like, I live somehow. The God of Time might have a grudge against Natsu. I mean, he terrorized her. Like, she was too scared after that point to ever really fight again. I mean, I imagine that Kronos didn't want to fight Natsu either. Like, Kronos got mauled. Alright, we're a little over halfway, so let me do another quick shill as a reminder. We're about $74, I think, into the 100 stretch goal for the new mic. Or, sorry, the $100 goal for the new mic. But the stretch goal at 500, I'll get a camera set up, and we'll do a little further content with a face reveal and with me actually on camera. And the plan is going to be further from there to do maybe some reaction content, maybe watch a couple animes, see like trailers and stuff and just kind of really talk with them, because I've done a little bit of like audio reaction, but it's not really the same. Theories about Dead Rock. My hopes with Dead Rock is that it's gonna have a connection to Mishima's other series. Like, each of Mishima's series exists in their own universe and have their own timelines and stuff, but all of them have a same connecting point of afterlife. So it's like all the people that go to what's basically heaven are going to the same place, whereas all the people that are going to hell are relatively the same people across the verse. So, villains and evil people. So you see, like, Mueller there hanging out with somebody like, I don't know, some with keys or some other just kind of vile individual. Fortunately, so, like, there's ways, though, for Georg to come back. And on top of that, Jienma never really got hyped up the way that Georg did, to where it's like we saw Suzaku, but Georg is stronger than Suzaku. So if we had Georg just appear back, we know that it's going to take a lot just to put him down, because he's going to be a very large-scale enemy threat level, just from what we've been told by other people. Like, Suzaku himself, like, said that Georg is much stronger than he is. And there's no reason to doubt what he has to say, especially when he's talking about his own strength in comparison. And it's not like Suzaku, is one of those characters who's very humble about how he talks about himself. Seemed very much fine with talking about where he was strength-wise and talking about where they were strength-wise. I really want to see post their first, or like Laxus's win on Kirin, because I feel like with how things went, it was in a way that where like Kirin had the favor because of Lexion Soul and everything, but once the coffin broke, it switched into a way that was also in Laxus's favor, like power-wise. And then I don't like what they do in the official translation. It should be like Megaton I think it was like Dragon King Red Lightning, or Lightning Dragon King. Let's look at the Japanese version again. I really want to figure out like exactly what Laxus's thing is now. Like, what's the plan with his character in terms of combat now that he doesn't have this Lacrima in his body? Because with him, shouldn't he be like a new type of Dragon Slayer, or is he going to become a 5th gen? Like, I'm very curious as to find out what exactly is different in terms of his, what exactly is going to be different for his style. I'm just running through some of the fight. I'll rereading the Dogromag fight. Dude, this fight was heat. I actually can't wait to see it animated. I really like Dogromag. I was a little salty his fight was shorter than I wanted it to be. Like, we did get some content with him in his dragon form, but I wish that we got at least like 2 more chapters of content in his dragon form. I think, though, ultimately him as a character was just supposed to be a bar, like, to get the idea Natsu and Suzaku combined are strong enough to beat the bar for a dragon god, because that's ultimately what Dogromag is in terms of like one character. Is he is the bar of when you get into Dragon God territory. So if you can beat him one-on-one, you are a Dragon God level, even if it's near the bottom. And with Natsu and Suzaku doing it combined, obviously they did a unison raid, but this means that each of them is around halfway there. Each of them is around half of the bar to get a Dragon God at that point in time, at the end of the Dogra Labyrinth. I like how I barely talked about the Dragon King Festival. I mostly just gave a quick theory. Talked about like how that might be Natsu versus E and D at that point. We've been talking more about like Georg. Oh, my cat's laying on my keyboard. Would you stop? Gandora. She's just sitting there. She's pressing buttons. I think she's okay though. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, like Georg could really provide like an extra opponent to fight. I think that's something we're really gonna need. But because like imagine if he went and got his parts and then did some alchemy and then did a human transmutation. I think it'd be cooler to see him from Viernes because Viernes can just make a full concept embodiment. You said you're glad to see me live streaming again, Fenrir. Well, what's up, man? I appreciate it. I was just telling him So I'll give another quick. I'll make it shorter. As a rundown, while doing these streams, I'm going to be doing them more frequently. I'm going to do usually 4 throughout the week. Monday, Tuesday, I'm going to do them at like normal times. So in the middle of the day. Thursday is going to be early in the morning, and then Saturday is going to be later in the evening. As that way, I have streams throughout the week that kind of cover different time zones, so more people can kind of tune in. Because even if somebody isn't here now, I would hope that it's like tomorrow they come and listen, and then maybe they catch the stream the next time, or like they're like, oh well, I know that now I'll be good to catch the Thursday stream based off of like what time it was last week. Now I can actually go watch it, or when I catch it live. Versus like, oh, maybe I just want to listen to it later throughout the day, an hour and a half video just to kind of hear me rambling, kind of just generally talking about stuff that's going on within the series. What's up, Irie? Oh, it's Irie in July. How you doing, man? But yeah, we're just, so we're doing a goal setup. We're about $74 in at 100 is to be able to around fund my new mic. At 500 though, if we reach 500 within the month, I'll get set up with a camera, do my face reveal. We're gonna do some reaction content, like maybe we'll do a reversion of the death battles, the fairy tale ones. Maybe we can talk about we'll watch like the 100 Years Quest trailer when it actually comes out. We get an actual trailer. There'll just be some fun stuff to do in the future. And besides donating, there is the chance to become a member. If you want to become a member of the channel, just do like $1 or $2 a month. And that way you're kind of supporting without having to do anything like, do super chats or do any donations. It's all set up where, you can get a little bit extra, get a couple emojis, get some in the chat. I know I don't have much right now. I think I have a couple team emojis. I got to get some more, but I also need to get, my plan is I'm going to have to do maybe like an extra, like little bit of content. I don't know. I think what I might do, I have to figure out something to do for members is the thing. But for now, I just before I even get to that, I got to worry about just kind of keeping a consistent stream schedule. Like I said, these ones on Saturday will be at night. It'll be more in the evening, or I guess whatever time it is for you guys. But for me, it's like nighttime. I think Viernes could know about Natsu being a demon. Yeah, I think he knows. Like he's clearly, if part of his whole thing is getting information, I'd be really surprised if he hasn't gathered information on everybody right now. I mean, he just had a copy of all of Fairy Tail, so I mean, I think it would make sense if he knows about the main cast and he knows like the basic information about them at least. Ugh. It's hot in this room. We'll keep going for a little bit. I need another fan. Just kind of generally chatting. I'm curious. Comment in the video if you end up watching this after the stream. I know there's gonna be some people. The Dragon King is above the Dragon Gods theoretically. It depends on how you look, because obviously a king is over the whole race, but like gods, when you think of gods, like not a god, but like a god of something, it's like you are the max at that thing. Like, oh, the fire dragon god, you are the strongest fire dragon. Whereas the Dragon King would mean that you are the king of dragons. Like, you are the top of the whole set of species. I wonder if Viernes gets information. I imagine Viernes could probably, like, astral project and just kind of, like, observe. For the new Sky Shadow Dragon fusion, is there a fusion you would like to see? I would really like to see Earth and Fire get, like, a Lava Dragon Slayer. Something kind of like, even if it's pretty basic, I think that'd be really cool to see. Or Sky and Lightning and make, like, a Storm Dragon. Like, I would really want to see Duke do some cool stuff after God Serena gets, taken down and killed. I think he's going to take those Lacryma and really do something special. That'd be badass. Like, why would we not want to see something like that, my guy? I'm scrolling through right now, looking at some of this shit going on. What is this? Anyway. But yeah, I think that there's a lot generally setting up right now. I don't really care too... I don't want to say that I don't care. It's just that I don't have as much focus on some of the side fights. Like, I don't have a lot of stocks in the Kotetsu and Genai fights. I want to see them, but, like, I don't want them to be really long chapters unless it's something very specific. Like, we had Kotetsu underestimate Lucy, so, like, she's going to fight Genai. So I would love to see Lucy beat Genai with medium level difficulty at best. I want to see her really style on him and, like, kick his ass. And then when it comes to Kotetsu, I think Gray should absolutely dominate that fight. I think Gray should have little to no problem with Kotetsu. Natsu versus Duke, I'm wanting it more to be like Duke keeps like creating more things and more Athena, like, you know, Athena 3, Athena 4. I want Natsu to keep fighting those and then to kind of just be on a... Like, even though he's fighting, it's more of a Duke fight to kind of just show, like, how Duke does his thing, how Duke goes about battle, and how he goes about general conflict. He's like a character, he's like a scientist summoner. He's going to be making things mid-fight and, like, analyzing the character and then going to adjust and doing certain things. I really want to see how that fight goes. And then, obviously, the most tight fight, easily the most interesting fight, Jalal versus God Serena. I feel like that's... everybody's going to be saying that. This next chapter, like, I know it's going to open with how Natsu was with Duke and Athena 2. But I'm hoping it's... Here's the thing. I know that the Genai and Kotetsu fights need to happen first. Because... I don't know. Like, we could get, like, the full fight... Because, like, I think that, like, when God Serena goes down, they're going to have, like, Duke's going to have an interference moment, take the Lacrima out of his body, and then make a couple more Athenas. The question is, though, then, where is that going to be placed? Because we also need to get the Kotetsu and Genai fights out of the way. But you don't want to have the more interesting fight happen and then two smaller fights happen after, because then the smaller fights are going to get completely dwarfed in terms of what people want to see, because you want it to be a build-up, not like you start with the best thing and the next two things are, oh yeah, cool. Because outside of it, it's like, you know, people want to see, people generally, I feel like, at least from what I saw, like, really want to see the Jalal fight. Some people want to see the Genai and Kotetsu fight. Some people want to see what's, like, I feel like also a lot of people want to see what's going on with the Signario sisters. But, like, the fight itself is kind of, like, right now, because we... Like, Urza's fighting both of them at the same time. I only imagine that one of them's going to fight at once. But at the same time, while that's happening, Urza is fighting two people with really high-level version... Like, pretty much like the, you know, tied for second place right now for top alchemists, I would imagine. Like... Really, I guess, like, 3, because it would go, like, Vierna's number 1, then Duke, and then maybe the Signario sisters, I would assume. Because anybody else, I just don't really see, alchemy-wise, even getting within, like, visual perception of these 4. But with, I don't know, with the Urza fight, my only thing is realistically, is, like, how Urza gets around their powers. I know Urza has a reputation of doing wild things. It just kind of depends on which part it is. But the Signario sisters didn't seem beyond her scope. It just seemed like their powers were super weird and hard to deal with. But I mean, like, they're still going to be like that. So unless Urza's learned a couple things in terms of how their powers work, I think she's going to have a rough problem. I still really would like it if Urza lost. I think it would be really cool if Urza lost and she needed other characters to intervene. Because I think that there's some secrets and reveals going on with the Signario sisters, but we gotta wait to see what exactly that is. Because, like, the Signario sisters are super interesting. I don't think anybody finds them boring. Like, their designs are cool. I actually like their official colors. Their alchemy powers are really cool. But they just, at least as of... Oh, dropping stuff. At least as of right now, we just don't know anything about them. I still have the theory that they're dragons, just based off of, like, you know, the scale-like gloves. And then it looks like they have horns. But it's going to depend. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see. But I think the gray, or not the gray stuff, I think the stuff with Jalal and God Serena is easily the most interesting out of the fights. because the other ones I don't think are going to be as attention grabbing. Like the Natsu versus Athena 2 and beyond will be cool, but I don't think that's going to be anybody's focus to talk about. I feel like the fight that everybody really wants to talk about, once we get to it, is Jalal versus God Serena. So I think that one's going to be the most interesting battle, because with Urza has to fight a tricky opponent, figure out how they work, figure out how exactly am I going to get around like how these guys do their thing, and exactly what I need to do. I think she needs to get back up. I think Misaki should come in. It should be the two of them versus the Signario sisters. But it's gonna be a minute for that. But with that, I think you could do a lot of cool stuff with the character combinations, and maybe make some really cool the cover of that volume. I think could be really cool. So we'll have to just kind of like I said, wait and see. Just one of those things. You gotta kind of give things a minute. But with that, oh man, I would love to see these two battle it out. But like the God Serena and Jalal fight, they're like God Serena's powers. Like he's a Dragon Slayer. He's going to be fighting pretty direct, and I think that one's going to apply to make a lot more interesting fights in the large scale, because Jalal is going to be dealing with the higher end level Dragon Slayer, but somebody I think that is way less polished than how God Serena kind of does this thing. Like Jalal, like I said, Jalal is that guy. So Jalal getting time to really think over his opponent and figure out what to do, I think is exactly what he needs. And from what we've seen, God Serena isn't like Natsu, where he's like, he wants to put his forehead right up to your forehead so he can fucking punch you. Whereas God Serena seems more like a reactionary character. And I think against somebody like Jalal, it's going to be rough for him. Like he's going to probably play a little bit more aggressive, just based off of I feel like he should be knowledgeable and experienced enough to know, oh, this is an opponent that I don't want to just stand there for. Because if he just stands there and Jalal falls Altiris, then I'm like, what is it? I feel like he's just going to fall over and die. Like Jalal's just going to get him in under 30 seconds. Ninja Duke being a brawler would be hilarious. I would love to see what Duke does in a fight. Like I really want to see if he's just going to be summoning people. But I think that makes sense. But anyway, other than that, though, I'm going to end out the stream. Like I said, I do have a membership for anybody who wants to support the channel. There is an option for donations. Anything that you guys decide, if you think that I've earned it in terms of entertainment, that'd be appreciated, but it is not required. If you don't think I've earned it yet, we'll see. I'm telling you, I'm going to be putting out regular content. It's not always going to be at a time for everybody to catch. I really like the idea of it having at a regular times for at least two out of the 4. So people who normally wouldn't be able to catch the day streams will have a chance to catch the late night or early morning streams. And then anybody who doesn't catch it that normally would have liked to will have something to listen to and knows like the times kind of general spans for future streams as well. Because we're gonna keep it consistent. Like that's going to be one of the main goals, is I want to keep it consistent. I think Nuts is going to beat Athena when he's going to join Urza in her fight. I think actually Wendy in the fight would be really cool. But I think that would be really cool. But I want to see the Diablos members come in. And then, like I said, it's building up for the plan. If we can get to that 500 goal, I think we can do a lot of fun, just general content. Like I said, I got a green screen. I would love to set it up and just have my background be anime places or something fun. Like, just do kind of some goofy shit just for entertainment. Like, we just have streams where it's like, oh yeah, pick the background that we talk about. And you can just, like, maybe do something like that where it's like, oh, well, if you donate $1, you get to pick the background for the next minute. And we do something fun like that. Or, some shit like that. Or, you can change the background out of a folder. And I don't tell anybody what's in the folder. I think, there's some strong value there potentially, but obviously, like I said, potentially, I feel like with a lot of the people, I got to show that I'm going to be putting out content regularly again, so people will think, obviously it's like, oh well, I mean, I've watched 4 of your videos this week, and that's like 5-6 hours. I feel like there's people like, yeah, you've earned $1, let me throw $1 your way, and maybe after I do like 40 hours a week, then they'll want to check that out. But other than that, I'll talk to you guys, let's say it's Saturday, so I'll talk to you guys Monday. It's going to be around, like, middle to afternoon, probably like 1, actually, maybe like 12 to, probably like 2 o'clock, let's say 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, go off that. But other than that, I'll talk to you guys then. I had a good time just talking in general. But I'm hoping that, we can get the ball rolling with a lot more kind of content. I'll have to think of what we're going to talk about in the next few episodes. I was going to have Quan on the stream, but I think I ended up starting it too late. I'm going to try and get him for Monday or Tuesday.